Woman was God's second mistake. These words from Friedrich Nietzsche weren't meant to demean women, but to expose a truth so unsettling that society has spent centuries burying it beneath layers of romantic fantasy and social conditioning. You've been lied to about love. Every movie, every song, every piece of advice you've received about relationships has been designed to keep you blind to the most fundamental truth about female nature. What you call love is actually something far more calculating, far more strategic than you've ever imagined. Here's what they don't want you to know. Female love isn't about affection. It's about power. It's about securing the highest value male possible, maintaining control over that male, and extracting maximum resources and status from the arrangement. This isn't cynicism. This is reality stripped of its pretty packaging. You see it everywhere, but you've been trained not to recognize it. The woman who suddenly loses interest when her man loses his job. The girlfriend who becomes distant when her partner shows vulnerability. The wife who weaponizes intimacy to get what she wants. These aren't anomalies. They're features, not bugs, of female psychology. The red pill community has touched on this truth, but they've only scratched the surface. The black pill goes deeper, but it wallows in despair. What I'm about to reveal to you comes from the philosophical depths of Nietzsche himself, a man who understood that love, like everything else in human existence, is fundamentally about the will to power. Society tells you to be romantic, to be sensitive, to treat her like a queen. But what happens when you follow this advice? You become exactly what female nature is programmed to reject: a man without power, without frame, without the very qualities that trigger genuine attraction. Tonight, we're going to shatter every illusion you've held about love, relationships, and female nature. We're going to explore why Nietzsche called woman God's second mistake, and more importantly, how understanding this truth will liberate you from a lifetime of confusion, frustration, and emotional manipulation. The truth isn't comfortable, it isn't pretty, but it is the foundation upon which all successful relationships are actually built. Are you ready to see what's really behind the curtain? Let's start with what you've been programmed to believe. Society has sold you the Disney version of love, that women fall for kindness, for emotional availability, for men who respect them by putting them on pedestals. You've been told that if you're just nice enough, romantic enough, supportive enough, you'll win her heart forever. This is the biggest lie ever told to the modern man. Here's what's actually happening in every interaction you have with women. She's constantly evaluating your power level, not your bank account, though that matters, but your social dominance, your frame control, your ability to command respect from others. She's asking herself one fundamental question: is this man stronger than me, or can I control him? Watch how women behave around men they perceive as high value versus low value. With the CEO, the athlete, the man who commands a room, she's feminine, submissive, eager to please. With the nice guy who brings her flowers and validates her every emotion, she's demanding, testing, gradually losing attraction until she's not ready for a relationship or needs space. This isn't conscious manipulation. This is biological programming running deeper than her rational mind. Hypergamy, the female drive to secure the highest status male available, isn't a choice. It's hardwired into her DNA by millions of years of evolution where her survival depended on securing a protector and provider. But here's where it gets darker. Once she's secured you, the power dynamic doesn't stop. She begins what we call fitness tests, seemingly irrational behaviors designed to test whether you'll maintain your frame or crumble under pressure. She starts arguments over nothing. She becomes moody without explanation. She compares you to other men. She withdraws affection strategically. Most men fail these tests spectacularly. They apologize. They try to logic their way out. They become more accommodating. Each failed test signals to her unconscious mind that she's with a weak man, and weak men trigger disgust, not love. The modern dating landscape has amplified this dynamic to unprecedented levels. Social media gives every woman access to hundreds of high-value men. Dating apps create an endless carousel of options. The result? Even average women now have inflated perceptions of their own value and constantly wonder if they can do better. This is why your relationships follow predictable patterns. Intense attraction at first, followed by gradual cooling, increased demands, more drama, and eventually her claiming she's not feeling it anymore. She didn't stop loving you. She never loved the real you in the first place. She loved the power she thought you represented. But here's what's even more disturbing. The very qualities that society tells you make you a good man, emotional availability, agreeableness, putting her needs first, are the same qualities that gradually erode her attraction. You're being set up to fail by the very culture that claims to help you succeed. The solution isn't to become bitter or resentful. The solution is to understand the game being played and learn to play it from a position of strength. But first, you need to accept that everything you thought you knew about love was designed to keep you powerless. The rabbit hole goes much deeper than this. Nietzsche understood something that modern psychology is only beginning to acknowledge. All human relationships are power relationships. When he wrote about the will to power, he wasn't just describing political systems or business hierarchies. He was revealing the fundamental drive behind every human interaction, including what we romantically call love. Here's the philosophical truth that will change everything. Genuine attraction cannot exist without a power differential. The woman must perceive the man as occupying a higher position in the social hierarchy. This isn't about money or status, symbols, though these can be manifestations of power. This is about frame, about who controls the emotional reality of the interaction. Frame is everything. It's who sets the tone, who determines what's acceptable behavior, who others defer to when decisions need to be made. A man with strong frame doesn't argue with a woman's emotions. He acknowledges them, but doesn't let them dictate his actions. He doesn't seek her approval for his choices. He doesn't change his plans to accommodate her moods. But here's what most men miss. Maintaining frame isn't about being rigid or domineering. It's about being unmovable in your core values while remaining emotionally unreactive to her tests. When she creates drama, you remain calm. When she threatens to leave, you genuinely don't chase. When she compares you to other men, you show complete indifference to her manipulation attempts. This is where hypergamy reveals its true nature. Women don't just want resources, they want access to superior genetics and social positioning. A woman will leave a millionaire who supplicates to her for a bartender who treats her as replaceable. She'll divorce a devoted husband who pedestalizes her for a man who keeps her guessing about his commitment level. The fitness tests become more sophisticated as women age and gain experience. The direct challenges of younger women evolve into subtle psychological warfare. She'll create situations where you're forced to choose between maintaining your frame and keeping peace. She'll use emotional manipulation disguised as communication. She'll threaten the relationship whenever you show strength that she can't control. Here's the most disturbing revelation. The moment you prioritize the relationship over your own frame, you begin triggering her disgust response. This isn't conscious. It's a deep biological reaction to perceived weakness. Her rational mind might tell her you're being loving and considerate, but her lizard brain interprets accommodation as genetic inferiority. This explains the modern epidemic of dead bedrooms and sexless marriages. The husband who does everything right, according to social programming, sharing household duties, being emotionally available, putting her needs first, creates the exact conditions that kill sexual attraction. He becomes her emotional tampon, not her sexual partner. The black pill community recognizes this dynamic, but draws the wrong conclusion. They believe the game is rigged against men and retreat into nihilistic despair. But Nietzsche would see this differently. He would say that understanding the will to power is the first step toward mastering it. The red pill community gets closer to the truth but often focuses on tactics rather than fundamental transformation. PUA techniques and manipulation strategies miss the deeper point. Authentic power cannot be faked. True frame cannot be performed. Either you are the man who commands respect naturally or you are not. But here's what none of them tell you. This entire dynamic serves a crucial evolutionary purpose. Female hypergamy and fitness testing exist to ensure that only the strongest men reproduce and lead. Women aren't the enemy. They're the quality control mechanism that forces men to become worthy of respect. The question isn't whether this system is fair or moral. The question is whether you're going to understand it and adapt, or remain confused and frustrated by dynamics you refuse to acknowledge. The final truth is the most liberating. Once you truly internalize these realities, you become immune to manipulation and free to build relationships based on genuine mutual respect rather than supplication and control. Now comes the moment of transformation. Understanding the nature of power in relationships isn't meant to make you bitter. It's meant to make you free. Nietzsche didn't reveal these truths to create resentment, but to liberate the superior man from the chains of social conditioning and false expectations. The path forward requires a complete reconstruction of how you approach relationships, starting with the most fundamental shift. You must become outcome independent. This means genuinely not caring whether any particular woman stays or goes, not pretending indifference, actually achieving it through building a life so compelling that no single person can threaten your happiness or stability. Here's what this looks like in practice. You develop your career, your physique, your social circle, and your personal interest to the point where you become genuinely scarce and valuable. You don't do this to impress women. You do this because a man without options has no power. A man who needs any particular relationship will always be at the mercy of whoever he needs. Frame control becomes natural when you have genuine alternatives. You don't negotiate with bad behavior because you're not afraid of consequences. You don't tolerate disrespect because you have better options. You don't chase because you understand that anything worth having must be earned, not given freely. This is where most men make their crucial error. They think power means being controlling or aggressive. True power is the opposite. It's being so secure in your value that you can be generous without being taken advantage of, strong without being domineering, confident without being arrogant. When a woman tests your frame, you respond with amused mastery rather than defensive reactions. Her emotional outbursts are met with calm strength. Her attempts to manipulate through withdrawal of affection are met with genuine indifference, not cold indifference. The indifference of a man who has other sources of validation and fulfillment. Here's the paradox that transforms everything. The moment you stop needing her approval, you become worthy of her respect. The instant you become genuinely willing to walk away, she starts working to keep you. When you treat the relationship as valuable but not essential, she begins treating it as essential. But this transformation must be authentic, not performed. Women have evolved sophisticated mechanisms for detecting fake confidence and manipulative behavior. You cannot pretend to have options. You must actually develop them. You cannot fake outcome independence. You must build a life where you genuinely don't need any particular person's validation. The Nietzschean approach to relationships recognizes that healthy dynamics require inequality, not in terms of human worth, but in terms of social positioning. The masculine frame must be stronger than the feminine frame, not through force or manipulation, but through genuine strength, competence, and self-possession. This doesn't mean treating women poorly. It means treating them honestly. Instead of pedestalizing them, you see them as human beings with their own biological imperatives and psychological needs. Instead of resenting their nature, you work with it. Instead of fighting evolutionary dynamics, you position yourself to succeed within them. The liberated man understands that female behavior isn't personal. It's biological. When she tests him, she's not being malicious. She's following programming, designed to ensure she's with a man strong enough to protect and provide. When she compares him to other men, she's not being cruel. She's ensuring she hasn't settled for inferior genetics. Your response to these dynamics determines everything. Weak men react emotionally, seek to control through manipulation, or retreat into resentment. Strong men remain unaffected. maintain their standards, and continue building their empires regardless of any individual woman's behavior. This is true liberation, understanding the game so completely that you can play it from a position of strength rather than desperation. You offer value because you have value, not because you need validation. You maintain relationships because they enhance your life, not because you fear being alone. The ultimate truth Nietzsche would recognize: when you become the man that women naturally want to submit to, not through domination, but through genuine superiority, you stop needing to pursue anyone. They pursue you. And from that position of strength, you can build relationships based on mutual benefit rather than neediness and control. This is the path from confusion to mastery, from supplication to sovereignty. The choice before you is simple but not easy. You can continue living the lie that society has sold you, chasing women who don't respect you, entering relationships that slowly drain your power, wondering why nice guys finish last, while refusing to acknowledge the biological realities that govern human attraction. Or you can embrace the uncomfortable truth that Nietzsche understood. Relationships are power dynamics, and the man who refuses to claim his position of strength will always be at the mercy of those who do. This isn't about becoming bitter toward women. This is about becoming realistic about human nature, including your own. When you stop pretending that love is some mystical force that transcends evolutionary programming, you can finally build relationships that actually work. Starting tomorrow, your life changes. You stop seeking approval and start commanding respect. You stop explaining yourself to people who should be grateful for your time. You stop tolerating behavior that you wouldn't accept from anyone else, simply because it comes from someone you find attractive. Most importantly, you start building the kind of life that makes you genuinely scarce and valuable. Not for women, for yourself. The women are simply a natural consequence of becoming the kind of man that others want to be around. The weak will call this philosophy toxic. The resentful will say it's manipulative. The blue-pilled will insist it's wrong because it doesn't align with their romantic fantasies. Let them. Their opinions are irrelevant to your mission. You now understand what most men will never grasp: that genuine love can only exist between equals, and equality in relationships isn't about being the same. It's about both people bringing equivalent value to the dynamic. For that to happen, you must first become valuable. The time for confusion is over. The time for excuses has ended. You have the knowledge that separates the superior man from the masses who stumble through relationships, wondering why nothing ever works the way they were promised it would. What you do with this knowledge will determine whether you spend the rest of your life as a man who understands power, or as one who remains forever mystified by it. The choice is yours. But you can never again claim ignorance of how the game is actually played. Nietzsche once wrote, "One must have chaos within oneself to give birth to a dancing star." Your old understanding of relationships was that chaos. What you build from these ashes will be your dancing star. The transformation begins now.